The night was cold and silent on the edge of the mining colony. Daniel sat inside his small metal home, sipping a cup of hot black tea. He liked peace, he liked silence, and he liked being alone. Ever since the war ended, Daniel avoided people and trouble. He worked as a repair technician now, fixing broken machines and keeping to himself. Then came the knock, a soft, slow knock on the door. Almost like someone too afraid to knock loud. Daniel looked at the clock. 2 a.m. Who would come? Here at this hour. He grabbed his old plasma wrench and opened the door slowly. A tall woman stood there, wearing a long cloak soaked in rain. Her skin had a soft blue glow. Her silver eyes shined even in the dark. And next to her, holding her hand, was a little girl. The girl looked no older than 5. But it wasn't her size that shocked Daniel. It was her eyes. Human eyes, green like his own, staring up at him quietly. The woman's voice trembled. "I'm sorry to come like this, but you have to see her." Daniel stepped back, his mouth slightly open. "What is this? Who are you?" The woman pulled back her hood, revealing her face. Daniel stared, confused, until something clicked in his memory. Soraya. He whispered he hadn't spoken that name in years. Soraya nodded, her silver eyes filled with emotion. "I didn't know where else to go," she said softly. "She's your daughter." Daniel froze. The little girl looked up at him again, then stepped behind Soraya's cloak. He blinked, trying to understand what he'd just heard. "My what?" he asked, feeling his knees grow weak. Soraya stepped inside without waiting for permission. She dried the child with a towel and sat her down near the heater. "You remember the war," she said. "But do you remember the mission on Keller 9? Daniel frowned. "Bits and pieces. We were trapped together, right?" "In that bunker," Soraya nodded slowly. "They wiped your memory when the mission ended, didn't they?" Daniel didn't answer, but his silence said enough. She continued. "We were together for days, hiding, bleeding, hoping to survive. We were more than just soldiers. After you were taken for debriefing, I found out I was carrying your child." Daniel looked at the little girl again. She was now drawing shapes on the fogged-up window. Her fingers glowed faintly, just like Soraya's. "But she looks human." Daniel whispered. "She's both," Soraya said. "Human and Alari. A hybrid." Daniel sat down slowly, gripping the edge of the table. He felt dizzy. Like the ground had disappeared under his feet. "I didn't think this was possible," he said, his voice low. Soraya nodded. "Neither did I. She's strong." "Daniel?" "Too strong," she added. "Her body is adapting fast. Her mind, even faster." The child turned and looked at him. She tilted her head, then said, "Hi." In perfect English, Daniel smiled awkwardly and waved. He didn't know what else to do. He was a soldier, a mechanic, not a father. "I named her Lyra," Soraya said. Her voice softer now. "She has your courage." And something more. Daniel asked the question, burning in his mind. "Why now? Why come to me after all these years?" Soraya's face turned serious. Her silver eyes darkened. "They're hunting us," she said. "They want Lyra." Daniel stood up. "Who?" "The Abzerans," Soraya replied. "A faction within the Galactic Assembly. They think she's a threat to purity, to balance. But they don't understand her, and they don't care." Daniel clenched his fists. No child deserved to be hunted, especially not his. "So what do you want from me?" he asked. "I want you to protect her," Soraya said. "I can't do this alone." Daniel looked at Lyra again. She smiled at him, then returned to her window drawings. A little star, a moon, and something that looked like Earth. His heart softened. He never wanted children, never dreamed of being a father. But something deep inside him shifted. This wasn't just about the past anymore. This was about what came next. He nodded, slowly. "You can stay here, but tomorrow, we figure." out how to protect her. Together, outside, the rain fell harder, but inside that small metal home, a new story had just begun. A story of a soldier, a child, and a strange visitor with silver eyes. Daniel couldn't sleep that night. He lay on the edge of the small couch while Soraya and Lyra rested in the bedroom. His eyes stared at the ceiling, his mind spinning like a broken ship's engine. He remembered the war, the missions, the chaos, but not her, not clearly. Her face, her voice, and that name, Soraya, felt like a dream that vanished too soon. He sat up slowly, rubbing his face. The cold floor beneath his feet reminded him this was real. She was here. And that child Lyra was his. But how could a memory so important be gone? He had always followed orders, trusted the military, but now he felt betrayed. In the next room, Lyra stirred. Daniel walked over quietly, peeking in. The child slept peacefully beside Soraya. Her tiny hand glowed softly under the blanket. Daniel watched her chest rise and fall. She looked like any human child, except for the faint pulse of light under her skin. He stepped outside into the cold night air. The rain had stopped, but the sky was thick with stars. Daniel looked up and wondered what had he forgotten? And why had they made him forget? The next morning, Soraya sat at the table with an old datapad. Lyra played on the floor, building something with spare wires and bolts. Daniel poured them warm tea. Still unsure what to say, Soraya spoke first. "Do you remember the bunker on Keller 9? Daniel nodded. "Only parts. Flashes, heat, gunfire. We were trapped there for 6 days." She said, "Just you and me." Soraya told him how they escaped a burning research facility. They were the only survivors from their mixed species squad. They found shelter deep in a cave bunker. She was injured. Daniel carried her. They thought they'd die together. In that time, Soraya said softly, "We connected, not just physically, but mentally." Emotionally, Daniel listened, quiet, his hand gripping the mug tight. "They wiped your memory when the rescue ship arrived," she added. "They thought it was best." Humans and Alari weren't supposed to mix. He felt a strange pain. In his chest, something had been taken from him, something beautiful and real. He looked at Lyra, now holding a tiny gadget she made light up like magic. "She's brilliant," he said. Smiling for the first time, Soraya smiled back. "She built that from scraps, and it works." Daniel crouched near Lyra. "What is it, kid?" Lyra held it up proudly. "It talks to the stars." He laughed. "You're kidding?" She shook her head, then tapped it. The device made a soft humming noise and projected a spinning image of the galaxy. Daniel looked at Soraya in shock. "She made this?" Soraya nodded. "Without help, she has your mind," she added. "And something more." Daniel's heart pounded. He had missed 5 years of her life, missed her first words, her first steps, her first smile, but now he was here, and she was right in front of him. He looked into Lyra's eyes. "Do you know who I am?" Lyra nodded. "Mom said you're my papa, but you didn't know yet." Daniel blinked, then chuckled softly. She was smarter than most adults he'd met. "Well, I know now," he said, gently placing a hand on her shoulder. A silence followed a good one, the kind where things don't need to be said out loud. But then Soraya broke it, her voice heavy. "They're coming, Daniel. The Obzuran, they have our scent." Daniel stood up. "Then we run, we hide," he added, "and we prepare." Soraya looked uncertain. "You don't have to stay in this. You didn't ask for any of it." Daniel raised his hand. "Stop. You didn't make this child alone. I may not remember what we had, but I see what we made." He looked at Lyra again. "I won't leave her. She's mine. And if anyone tries to take her, they'll have to go through me." Lyra looked up, her eyes glowing faintly. She smiled, then held up her tiny gadget. "It says someone is already looking." Daniel's eyes narrowed. "What?" Soraya rushed over and scanned the device. It had picked up a nearby ship signature. Quiet watching, Daniel moved fast, pulling down the hidden crate from his storage locker. Inside his old gear, a pulse rifle, a jammer, and a dark suit with his name, D. Grayson. The soldier in him came alive again. He turned to Soraya. "We have maybe hours. You know any safe zones?" She nodded. "One, but it's far." Daniel picked up the child gently. Kara wrapped her arms around his neck like she belonged there. He looked at Soraya. "Let's get moving, Kara, before the past finds us again." And so, the three of them, soldier, mother and hybrid child, walked into the morning fog, leaving behind silence and walking toward danger, but this time, they were together. The wind howled through the rocky valley as Daniel guided the small hovercart over cracked ground. Soraya sat in the back, holding Lyra close under a thick gray blanket. They had been traveling all night, their shadows long in the rising sun. None of them had spoken in a while. Not since Lyra's device picked up that unregistered signal, Daniel's jaw was tight, his hands firm on the controls. He knew this kind of silence, one that came before something bad. He had lived it during the war. Now it returned. Not for soldiers, but for a child. His child, Lyra, peeked over the blanket and whispered, "They're still following." Daniel didn't ask how she knew. Her abilities were getting stronger by the hour. Sometimes she heard thoughts. Sometimes she saw light patterns others couldn't. See, Soraya reached forward, her voice low. "There's a place just ahead." "An old fuel station," Daniel nodded. "We stop for 10 minutes, then move again." When they reached the broken-down station, it looked like a skeleton, half buried in sand, windows cracked, roof caved on one side. Daniel stepped out first, pulse rifle ready, scanning with his visor. No heat signals, no traps, just dust, silence, and forgotten time. He waved them inside. Lyra walked behind her mother, but she kept looking up at the sky, as if something was waiting there. Daniel checked the power lines, managed to get weak. Lights working. Soraya poured water into a can and gave it to Lyra. She drank slowly, her fingers glowing faintly again. "We shouldn't stay long," Soraya whispered. "This place is too open." Daniel agreed. "But we need a signal jam. And I need to mask the cart." He went outside to cover the hovercart with metal sheets and thermal mesh. Then he paused. Something was wrong. He could feel it in his bones, like a buzz in the air. A sound came low, steady, like a whistle carried by wind. Then a flash high, above the cliffs. A scout drone, small, fast, with red lights blinking. Daniel raised his rifle, fired once, missed. The drone vanished behind the rocks. He ran back inside, breath sharp. "They found us," he said. "We leave now." Soraya stood, already holding Lyra. Daniel turned to grab supplies. Then a sound stopped them. A voice echoed from outside, mechanical and calm. "Step outside and surrender the hybrid child. This is your only warning." Daniel looked at Soraya, who shook her head. "We can't run fast enough in this terrain," she said. "I can hold them." "Buy you time?" "No," Daniel said firmly. "We stick together." He looked around, eyes sharp. There was a back door, barely usable, leading to the canyon behind. If they moved fast and quiet, they could vanish into the stone maze. He turned to Lyra, knelt down. "You remember what I told you about hiding?" Lyra nodded. No sound, no light, no fear. Daniel smiled. Proud, good girl. He opened the back door slowly. They stepped into the canyon, pressed against the rocks. Daniel went last, watching the front entrance, rifle ready, but it wasn't enough. A metal sphere rolled into the station from the front. It beeped once, then exploded with white smoke. Shouts followed, footsteps, dark armored figures entered. Abzerian hunters faster and stronger than normal soldiers, their armor marked with red slashes. Elite track squad. Daniel led his small group deeper into the canyon. But Lyra stumbled, her eyes wide. too many minds, she whispered. Gripping her head, she's feeling their thoughts, Soraya said quickly. She's not ready for this much. Daniel picked Lyra up, holding her tight as they ran. He didn't know where they were going, just that they had to keep moving. Blaster fire lit the rocks behind them. Stone shattered. Heat burned the walls. Then Soraya stopped, raised her hand. A wave of light burst out from her palm. It slammed into the canyon wall, creating a glowing crack. Daniel blinked. What is that? A hidden tunnel, she said, from long ago. They rushed inside, the tunnel sealed behind them. Silence returned heavy and deep. Daniel set Lyra down gently. She was breathing fast, her hands still glowing. Soraya sat beside her, whispering. Softly in a Lari language, Daniel leaned back against the cold wall. His shirt soaked in sweat, his rifle still warm. We can't keep running like this, he said. They'll chase her to the ends of the galaxy. Soraya looked at him, tired. But strong. There's one place they won't dare enter, she said. A refuge older than their faction. Hidden beyond the black curve, Daniel raised an eyebrow. That's myth. Soraya shook her head. It's real, and I know the way. He looked at Lyra, now sleeping softly in Soraya's lap, then back at the cracked wall where the tunnel had sealed. They're hunting her for her blood, he whispered. But they don't know what else she carries. He stood up, pulling a small light from his belt. Then let's take her where myths are born. Lightning cracked across the sky as the storm rolled over the cliffs. Daniel watched from the cave entrance, his hand resting on his pulse rifle. Winds howled like wild animals, carrying sand and sparks across the night. They had only hours to reach the launch site before the Abzeran found their trail again. Soraya stood behind him, her cloak wrapped tightly around Lyra. The child was pale, tired, and silent, her powers drained from too much exposure, but her fingers still glowed faintly, like a small star trying not to fade. Daniel turned around. The storm's bad, but it's our only chance, Soraya nodded. We move while their sensors are blocked. He tapped his wrist device. There's an old emergency ship buried 5 clicks east. It was used by smugglers. But I repaired it months ago, just in case. She raised an eyebrow. You always prepare for impossible things. Daniel smirked. I don't like surprises. He lifted Lyra gently into his arms, her head resting on his shoulder. Hold on, kid, he whispered. We're flying out of here. They left the safety of the cave and entered the wild storm. Each step forward was a fight against the wind. Sand stung their faces. Visibility was down to a few meters. Daniel led the way, his visor tracking the buried signal behind them. Soraya covered their footprints with small pulses of static light. She was weakening too, but still focused. Suddenly, Lyra whispered, We're not alone. Daniel stopped. Raising his rifle through the swirling dust, 3 dark figures appeared. Abzeran scouts covered in black armor, their weapons glowing red. Soraya stepped forward, hands raised. Before she could release her power, one of the soldiers fired a stun blast. The bolt hit Soraya's side, and she dropped to her knees. Daniel fired back, hitting one of the soldiers. In the chest armor cracked, he turned and ran with Lyra through the storm. A second blast whizzed past his ear. He ducked behind a rock, panting hard. He looked at Lyra. Can you do anything? Just a small trick. Lyra looked scared, but she nodded. She placed her tiny hand on his chest and whispered, Close your eyes. Daniel obeyed, and suddenly, everything around them turned pitch black. Even the storm gone, it was like standing inside a shadow. He opened his eyes, saw Lyra glowing softly in the center. The soldiers around them were blind, swinging their weapons into empty air. Daniel grabbed Soraya and pulled her toward the ship marker. They moved fast under Lyra's veil of darkness. Once they reached the coordinates, Daniel slammed his hand into the ground. The metal below responded. A hatch opened with a loud hiss. Inside was an old ship, rusty but solid. Daniel helped Soraya into the co-pilot seat and secured Lyra in the back. He dropped into the pilot chair and pressed the ignition panel. The screen lit up, "Emergency override accepted." "Let's see if you still remember how to fly," he muttered. The engines roared to life, shaking the walls of the hidden bunker outside. The Obzeran scouts began to break through Lyra's fading shield. Daniel didn't wait. He slammed the throttle forward, and the ship rose out of the sand with a deafening blast, lightning-wrapped. Around the hull, as they punched through the storm clouds, wind resistance hit them hard, but the ship held together. Inside, Soraya gripped the console, blood still seeping from her side. "I can stop the bleeding," she said weakly, "but—" "I'll need a moment," Daniel nodded. "Do what you can. We're not safe yet." Suddenly, a red light flashed on the screen. "Incoming vessel detected." A sleek Obzeran fighter dropped from the sky behind them. Fast, agile, and ready to kill. Daniel twisted the controls, sending the ship into a spin. Lasers flew past the cockpit. Barely missing them, Lyra woke up, eyes wide. "I can feel them," she said. "They're angry. They want to take me apart." Like a puzzle, Daniel growled, "Not happening." He pulled the ship into a canyon run, dodging between cliffs and rocky pillars. The Obzeran fighter followed close, matching every turn. Daniel tapped the weapons. System nothing worked. "Too old, too damaged, we've got no guns." He shouted. Soraya sat up, face pale. "Let me try something." She placed her hand on the ship's control panel and closed her eyes. The lights flickered. The engines shifted pitch. Something awakened inside the old craft. Lyra reached out and touched the wall of the ship. A sudden pulse ran through it like electricity. "But alive," the ship groaned. Then a hidden turret opened under the wing. It fired a bright plasma beam straight at the Obzeran fighter. The enemy ship exploded into flame, crashing into the canyon wall. Daniel blinked. Did she just activate that?" Soraya nodded slowly. "This ship. It's responding to her." They cleared the storm line and entered the quiet of upper atmosphere. Daniel leaned back, chest heaving. That's one way to fly out of a storm. He looked at Lyra, who was now sleeping again, curled up with a small smile. Soraya whispered. "She saved us," Daniel replied. "She's more than just special. She's a game changer." They had escaped for now. But deep in the void, others were watching, and the real war was just beginning. The stars stretched endlessly across the black sky as Daniel's ship glided into deep space. The storm planet was far behind them now, but the danger still followed. Daniel sat in the pilot's seat, his eyes on the navigation screen. Beside him, Soraya rested quietly, her wound bandaged with faded cloth and nanogel. And in the back, little Lyra snored softly, curled up in a blanket. "Where are we going?" Daniel asked. Soraya opened her eyes slowly, her voice weak but clear. "To the place they feared. A refuge older than both our races, hidden beyond the gravity lines of Sector 9. Daniel blinked. "The grave nest." Soraya nodded. "That's the name they gave it. But it's no grave." As they approached the coordinates, strange signals began to pulse through the ship. The lights flickered again, but not in warning, almost in greeting. Daniel frowned. "I didn't touch anything, but the ship just had changed direction." Soraya looked at Lyra. "She's guiding it." Lyra sat up, her eyes glowing with soft blue light. "I can feel it calling me," she whispered. Daniel looked over his shoulder. "Feel what?" "The heart of the refuge," she said. "It remembers me." Ahead, a dark asteroid field appeared. But hidden deep inside, something shimmered. A station. But not like any human or Alari design. It looked grown, not built metal, and crystal woven like vines. Soft lights pulsed across its surface, alive and watching. Daniel slowed the ship, but the station opened before them. Gates of stone and light moved silently aside. He whispered, "This place is ancient. Soraya nodded. It was made by the makers. A species so old, their bones turned into stars. The ship landed softly on a glowing pad as they stepped out. The floor lit up beneath Lyra's feet. It followed her steps like a trail of stars. Walls shifted, opening paths without sound. Daniel kept his rifle close, eyes moving left to right. Soraya touched his arm gently. They won't hurt us here. Not while she's with us. Still, Daniel didn't relax. He had trusted places before only to see them burn. Inside, the station glowed with a calm light. Strange floating stones marked the walls, and symbols no one could read shimmered like fireflies. Then a figure appeared, tall, wrapped in silver cloth, its face hidden behind a glass mask. Welcome, Soraya of the Alari. Welcome, Daniel of Terra. And welcome, Lyra, child of the Crossblood. The voice was calm, layered with echoes. Daniel tensed. How do you know us? The figure tilted its head. We watched, we waited. We remember what others forget. Lyra stepped forward, unafraid. Why? Does this place know me? The figure replied, because your blood carries the key, you are not just a child. You are a bridge. Long ago, the makers saw what would come, so they left this place. Waiting for someone like you, Soraya looked. Shocked, the prophecy. It's real, Daniel asked. What prophecy? The Alari once believed, she said, that when war and fear swallowed the stars, a child born of two worlds would open the path to unity or destruction. Daniel looked at Lyra. She looked so small, barely 6 years old, but now she stood taller somehow, glowing softly in the silence. The figure spoke again. This refuge is yours now. It will protect you, teach you, and reveal your path. Suddenly, another voice echoed deeper. Older. Not all wish her to rise. Daniel turned fast, aiming his rifle, but there was nothing there. The silver figure bowed. The hunters have traced your wake. They circle the outer ring. We cannot fight for you, but we can awaken what sleeps beneath. The floor shifted, revealing a glowing chamber beneath the main hall. They followed the light down. Inside, machines older than civilization hummed to life. Screens lit up, scanning. Lyra, recognizing her DNA, walls opened to reveal weapons, armor, tools, all untouched for thousands of years. Daniel's eyes widened. This is a vault, Soraya whispered. No. It's a seed. A seed for what? Daniel asked. Lyra touched one of the glowing crystals. It flared bright, and suddenly a small drone floated out and hovered near her shoulder. It spoke in a soft voice. Hello, Guardian. Daniel stepped back, shocked. Guardian. The drone nodded. She is the first of her kind, and the last hope of many. Daniel's throat tightened. He had come from a quiet life. He had opened a door to a silver-eyed woman. And now he was standing in the heart of a forgotten empire. Watching his daughter awaken powers lost to time, he knelt beside her. You okay, kid? Lyra nodded, her eyes still glowing. It doesn't feel strange anymore. It feels like home. Daniel looked at Soraya. Her eyes were full of fear, but also hope. This place remembers her, she said softly, but so do our enemies, and far above, in the shadow of deep space. A new fleet moved silently toward the refuge with orders not to capture, but to destroy. The lights inside the ancient refuge dimmed for just one moment. Then a deep pulse ran through the walls. Daniel looked up, his grip tightening on the rifle slung over his shoulder. That pulse, it wasn't natural. It was a warning. Soraya ran her hand across a nearby panel. The crystal surface glowed red, then displayed a map of the surrounding space. Dozens of ships were approaching fast, black, sleek, and hungry. Abzaran assault fleet. They found us, she whispered. They didn't come to capture her this time. They came to end her. Daniel's jaw clenched. We hold the line. This place, these halls. It's all we've got. He looked at Lyra, who was standing near the hybrid gate, her glowing hands resting on the smooth, ancient stone. The hybrid gate wasn't just a doorway. 'Twas a machine, older than history. Its carvings glowed softly. When Lyra touched them, each symbol reacted to her, as if waking from sleep. Lyra turned to them and said quietly, "It wants me to open it." Daniel looked at Soraya, unsure. Soraya stepped closer, her voice calm but firm. "Lyra, do you understand? What's inside?" Lyra shook her head. "No. But it feels like I've been there before, in my dreams, in my bones, outside." The fleet began to descend. The refuge's outer shields activated light fields crackled across the surface like spider webs of power. But the enemy didn't. "Stop!" They began firing. The walls shook. Ancient metal groaned. Stone fell from the ceiling. Dust filled the air. The silver-robed figure from before appeared again. "You must choose now," it said. "Open the gate and awaken what sleeps. Or stay and fall with this place." Daniel growled. "Fall. You said it would protect us." The figure looked at Lyra. "It will, if she lets it." Daniel turned to Lyra, who now looked calm for a child. Her hands began to glow brighter. "I can do it, but you have to keep them away from me." Daniel placed a hand on her shoulder. "Count on it." He turned to Soraya. "Take the inner corridor. Control the eastern side. I'll guard this hall." Soraya nodded and ran. Her cloak flaring behind her, Daniel stood before the hybrid gate, his rifle humming with power. Behind him, Lyra knelt on the platform, her light spreading into the floor. Symbols across the gate began to spin slowly. Awakening circuits not touched in 10,000 years. Then the first breach came. A massive boom echoed through the stone walls. Obzeran soldiers entered, tall, armored in black and red. They moved like shadows, weapons raised. Daniel didn't wait. He fired 3 shots. 3 hits, 2 dropped. 1 rolled behind a pillar. More followed, fast and silent. The battle had begun. Daniel moved like the soldier he once was, efficient, deadly, focused, but there were too many behind him. Lyra was whispering to the gate, her voice layered with strange tones. The platform beneath her cracked open, revealing an inner core of energy. The entire chamber began to shake. The hybrid gate responded to her voice. It was almost singing back. Then one of the enemy soldiers broke through the line. Charging straight at Lyra, Daniel shouted. Diving across the stone floor, he tackled the soldier midair, slamming them into the wall. His rifle gone, now just fists and fury. He fought with everything he had. The soldier's mask cracked under Daniel's elbow. He saw the face part human, part machine. The Obzerian were making hybrids of their own, twisted copies, forced creations. Daniel snarled and finished him. "No one touches her," he growled, blood on his face. Then the gate roared. A beam of light shot straight up into the sky. The energy cut through the roof of the refuge, out into space like a signal flare. Everything stopped. Enemy and ally alike looked up in awe. Lyra was floating now, her body surrounded by a soft energy field. She opened her eyes, glowing fully blue. "Remember," she whispered. Then she pointed her hand forward. And the ground in front of her shifted. Old machines rose from the stone. Golem's ancient protectors. They looked at Lyra, then marched forward. Daniel stumbled back, amazed. Soraya returned, covered in dust and burns. She stared at the walking guardians with wide eyes. "You activated the heart of the refuge," she whispered. "Lyra, what have you become?" Lyra turned to them, tears in her glowing eyes. "I'm still me, but I'm not just me anymore." The Obzerian began to retreat. They had seen enough. They had failed. Daniel dropped to his knees. Breathing hard, he looked. at his daughter, and for the first time, he realized she didn't just carry power. She carried a future, and the war had only just begun. The smoke was thick. The ancient walls of the refuge groaned and shook from the damage they had taken. But the Abzeran fleet had fallen silent outside the shattered gates. The enemy warships drifted like dead whales in the void. Inside the hybrid gate chamber, Daniel leaned against a broken pillar. His shoulder was bleeding, his ribs cracked. He had pushed himself past the limit again and again just to keep them safe. But now, as the light from the gate softened, he finally let his knees drop to the floor. Lyra floated above the stone platform, her small form glowing with a gentle warmth. The storm inside her had calmed, and in its place was something beautiful, a harmony between flesh and machine. Mind and energy. She had awakened the full heart of the refuge. Soraya knelt beside Daniel, her hand glowing faintly as she pressed it to his side. "You saved her," she whispered, her voice shaking. Daniel coughed, then smiled. "No. She saved us," the silver-robed guide returned. Walking slowly toward them, the lights of the refuge followed his steps like stars bowing to a king. He bowed his head. "The danger is not gone, but the trial is past. She is chosen, and you, Daniel Grayson, have fulfilled the role of protector." Daniel looked up, pain in his eyes, but pride in his heart. "I'm just her dad," he said softly. "That's enough for me." Lyra floated down now, her feet gently touching the stone. Her glow faded slightly, but her presence still made the air feel alive. She looked at Daniel and Soraya, then ran forward and wrapped her arms around them. "Both, I don't want to be special," she whispered. "I just want to be with you." Daniel held her tightly, ignoring the pain in his side. "You are with us," he said, "and no matter what happens next, we'll face it together." The chamber around them began to shift. Panels opened, screens appeared, a giant star map lit up on the far wall. Thousands of coordinates blinked slowly. Refuges, ruins, hidden places across the galaxy. Soraya stared in shock. "These are all linked to the Makers." The guide nodded. "The gate has given her access. The future is now hers to shape. But beware, where light returns, shadow follows." Suddenly, the ground shook again, but this time, it wasn't weapons, it was something deeper, older. A final signal echoing through the hybrid gate. A voice not from outside, but from inside, Lyra herself. She stepped back, her eyes glowing bright once more. "I can hear them," she said. "Not the Abzeran. The others, those who waited for this moment." A giant hologram formed above the map. A symbol, half human, half Alari, the mark of balance. The guide's voice trembled for the first time. "She is not just a child, she is the spark." Daniel stood again, wincing. He looked at Soraya. "They'll come again. Not just the Abzeran, others too. Those who fear change." Soraya nodded, her face calm. "Then we teach her, train her, and when they come, they'll find a family, not just a girl." Daniel smiled. "That's right, they'll find her father." The guide turned, waving his hand across the air. A panel opened in the wall, revealing a small room, warm, clean, full of tools and tech. "A place for her to learn," he said, "and a place for you to heal." Daniel stepped into the room, blinking at the soft lights. He turned to Lyra. "You did all this?" She nodded shyly. "I didn't mean to." The gate just listened. Soraya walked in behind them, wrapping her arms around them. Both, they stood together in the middle of a world forgotten by time. A warrior mother, a broken but unbreakable father, and a child who could rewrite destiny, far above, in the remains of the battle. The Abzeran sent one final message, quiet and cold. "She lives. Prepare for phase 2. But inside the refuge, the family did not fear. Because this time, they were ready. Not with armies, not with fire, but with love, knowledge, and unity. Daniel, walked with Lyra to a nearby console. She reached up and tapped it. The screen changed again, this time showing other hybrid signals. Across the galaxy, more like her. Waiting, hiding, surviving. She turned to her parents. "I want to find them," she said. Daniel smiled. "Then we'll go together." Soraya nodded. The war they feared is becoming something else. Movement, a beginning. And so, the little girl once hunted for her blood, once rejected by two worlds, now stood between them as a bridge, as a beacon, as a daughter. Loved fiercely by a father who never even knew she existed until she knocked on his door with silver eyes and a secret that changed the stars.